For this problem, we're asked to write two equations to model the scenario. We're told a pharmacist needs to fill an order for 75 grams of 3% lidocaine topical cream. However, only 2% and 5% concentrations are in stock, and we're asked how much of each kind should be used. So, in order to write our equations, we need some 2% and some 5%, and we need to know how much of each kind. So I'm going to let x equal my 2% cream, and I'm going to let y equal my 5% cream. And I'm going to make one equation based on that there has to be 75 grams. So however much of the 2% I use, add to that the 5% that I use, that has to add up to 75 grams. And then I'm going to make my other equation based on this 3% as the final concentration. So in that first cream, 2% or 0.02 of that amount is the lidocaine. And the second one is the 5%, so 0.05% of that amount is the lidocaine. And in the end, 3% of that total is the lidocaine cream. So I'm going to do the math here just to make this a little bit easier to use. So 0.2x plus 0.5y, 0.05y, is going to equal. So doing that on my calculator, I have 2.25. So this one right here is my equation, and this is my second equation. So we're to solve to figure out how much of each kind should be used using the matrix method. The matrix method is truly just a graph and calculator way to do an elimination problem. So with an elimination problem, I first line these up so that my x's are lined up, my y's are lined up, and my constant term is lined up. All right, so there we go. And then to get this into the technology, which our calculator can do or a computer can do, we create a matrix. And a matrix is simply a way to organize the numbers. So with a matrix in math, we use a square bracket to indicate the matrix. And each row is equal to an equation. And each column is equal to a variable. So my first equation, I have to know the coefficients here. So this is 1x and this is 1y. And so I put in this matrix, my organized pattern, 1x, 1y will end up equaling 75. So this is really my x column, my y column, and my answer column. And so then my next row is going to be my next equation. So x has the coefficient of 0.02, y has the coefficient of 0.05, and my answer for that is 2.25. So this matrix has 2 rows and it has 3 columns, and then our calculator will work with just these numbers to actually solve it out. So if we were going to do the elimination method by hand, we would multiply this top row by a negative 0.02 so that these would cancel out. But at this time, our calculator is going to take care of all of the math for us. So if I go to this next slide, I have all the calculator directions, and you're welcome to pause the video here if you need to take notes. On this slide, anything that's in the square brackets is an actual key that you push. And now we're going to go to the calculator and do this, so we'll walk through all of these steps that you see listed here. But if you need to reference it, pause your video here. So here I am at my calculator, and I want to go to the matrix. And so I see that word right here, right above the x to the -1 key. So I'm going to use my second and this button to get to the matrix menu. So in the matrix menu, we have the names for the matrices, and we see them in the square brackets. We have the size of the matrix listed, we have a chance to do math with the matrix, and we have a chance to edit it. The reason why there's not a size on any of the other matrices is because they don't have numbers in. So we want to enter our specific matrix, and so I'm going to go over to Edit, and I'll hit Enter. And the first thing it's asking me is how big of a matrix do I need? So I need a matrix that has 2 rows, an arrow over here, and 3 columns. Hit Enter. So now you see a matrix that's the exact same size as the one that we had drawn on our PowerPoint. So now I'm going to go through and type the entries, and it does move left to right through the equations. So we had 1, 1, and then 75. And then our second one, we had 0.02, 0.05, and 2.25. So I take a moment to double check, and I definitely have my matrix typed in, all of the numbers in the exact same location as I had them on the paper. So from here, I want to quit. So that takes me back to my home screen. And then I want to go back to my matrix menu. So second, and this button. Now I want my calculator to do some work on that matrix. So I go over here to Math. And there is a huge list of items that your calculator could do, because we could spend a whole course learning about what a matrix can do. It's a very powerful mathematical tool. I'm going to actually use the up arrow because the one I want to get to is actually near the bottom of the list. And so I arrow up here, and I want to get to this option B, which says RREF. It stands for Reduced Row Echelon Form. And so this is the way that the calculator will simplify this matrix or solve out the system of equations. So I'll hit Enter for that. And now I have to tell my calculator which matrix I want it to simplify. So I go back into my matrix menu, second matrix. This time I'm on the names, and I can see that matrix A here is chosen, so I hit Enter. And so now you can see my calculator is going to do this math feature on matrix A. And this reduced row echelon form is the way that the calculator will solve the system of equations that is in that matrix. So I hit Enter, and it gives me an answer. So my answer is listed here, and I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint slide, and then we'll write that answer down and figure out what it means. So I'm back here on my PowerPoint slide, and the matrix answer that the calculator had given me was 1, 0, 50. And the second row was 0, 1, 25. So we had talked about before that each row is equivalent to an equation. So this first row, these are the coefficients, and the order of the variables stay the same. So I would say 1x plus 0y equals 50. And I'm pulling my equation out of the matrix just the same exact way that we put these equations into the matrix. And so the second one would say 0x plus 1y is equal to 25. So now I want to think about what this actually means as far as how we normally write things. So we don't normally write a coefficient of 0 because this is saying there are no y values. So this is truly canceled out. We also don't normally write a coefficient of 1. It's understood. So when I translate this equation, it's really telling me that x is equal to 50. Using the same ideas with the second equation, 0x means that that has canceled out. 1y is the same as just y itself. And it's telling me y is equal to 25. So in this way, my calculator did the elimination method and came up with the answers to this problem. So I need 50 grams of the 2% cream, and I need 25 grams of the 5% cream. And we can easily see that if we add these numbers up, we have the 75 grams total. We could substitute them into the second equation as well, taking 2% and 5%, and we would see that that indeed does add up to the 2.25, which was the 3% of the total. So if you need to, go back in the video and look at that slide where I've listed the steps in order to use the matrix feature of your calculator to solve.